Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and keep watching more details. Chrisley not allowed to talk to Todd on big day. Chrisley recently celebrated her 51st birthday behind bars. Her daughter Savannah made the trip to be at the prison with her mother on her special day. Sadly, however, it was Julie's first birthday without her husband Todd in a very long time, making her special day even more tragic. Chrisley was reportedly not allowed to talk to her husband either. Chrisley not allowed to talk to Todd on big day. Speaking to Radar Online, Chrisley's attorney, Jay Sargent, confirmed Savannah made the trip to FMC Lexington in Kentucky for her mother's birthday. Fortunately, Savannah was able to see her mother without a piece of glass between them for her special day. Turns out, FMC Lexington in Kentucky allows inmates to have contact visitations. Per Radar Online, Savannah was able to embrace her mother on her birthday. She was also able to sit at a small table and spend time with her as long as they followed the rules of the facility. Per the handbook of the facility, Julie is allowed normal parental contact with their children while visiting. Because Savannah is Julie's child, she is permitted to give her mother both a hug and a kiss at the beginning and end of the visit. Sadly, Savannah Chrisley was not permitted to bring her mother any type of gift for her special day. She, however, did find a way to give her mother a gift anyway. In substitution of a physical item, Savannah reportedly added money to her mother's commissary. Jay Sargent tells Radar Online Julie had a very nice birthday visit with her daughter. She, however, was not permitted to speak with her husband. Limited communication. Despite being married, Todd and Julie Chrisley are only able to communicate via email. The phone system allows inmates to place calls. They, however, cannot receive calls, so the system is set up in a way that makes it impossible for Julie and Todd to call each other if they were permitted to do so. At the very beginning of their prison stint, they went through a brief period with no communication. Their legal team had to pull some strings to get them permission to communicate via email. Despite being inmates, they were granted permission to communicate this way because they were legally married. Unless their appeal works and they get out early, it may be years before they can talk to each other or see each other. The day dawned heavy with emotion, the air thick with anticipation yet silent. It was the kind of silence that comes not from the absence of sound, but from words left unspoken, hovering just beyond reach. For Julie Chrisley, that silence was unbearable. Julie had always been the glue of her family, the rock who stood tall through every storm, every scandal, and every tearful moment of vulnerability shared behind closed doors. But today wasn't just any day. Today was his day, Todd's big day, and she wasn't allowed to talk to him. The words had been passed down through legal channels, each one hitting her like a sledgehammer. No calls, no letters, no whispered reassurances through the cracks of their shared life. Nothing. She sat in their now quiet home, the Chrisley mansion, a place that once buzzed with the energy of their larger-than-life reality TV fame. The camera crews were gone, the bright lights dimmed. It felt like the house itself was holding its breath, waiting for the moment that wouldn't come. In her hands, she clutched a letter she'd written to Todd late the night before. Her fingers traced over the lines, over each curve of ink, as if touching the words might somehow bring her closer to him. She poured her heart into it, telling him things she hadn't yet had the courage to say aloud. Apologies, love, hope, things that didn't fit into the confined hours of their now limited lives. Words that went beyond the reality of courtrooms, sentences, and judgments. Words that no one but him would understand. She imagined Todd, pacing somewhere, his confident step perhaps just a little slower, a little more unsure today. The image of his typically flawless hair slightly disheveled made her smile despite the ache. He would hate it, the loss of control, the uncertainty. Todd Chrisley wasn't a man who dealt well with being out of control. Not with the kids, not with the show, and certainly not with their future. But what pained her most wasn't her inability to reach out to him. It was knowing that today was Todd's sentencing hearing, the culmination of months of courtroom battles, public scrutiny, and an endless stream of speculation about their family. This was the day that the world would decide their fate, and Julie wasn't even allowed to hold his hand through it. Her eyes misted over, a wave of helplessness washing over her. She could hear Chase's voice downstairs, murmuring something in a low tone. Savannah was probably sitting with her head in her hands, trying to figure out a way to keep the family together in the wake of whatever was coming. They were strong, her kids, stronger than she sometimes gave them credit for. But they were still so young, and they had no idea what was about to be taken from them. Julie's heart ached for Todd. Despite everything, the endless media circus, the mounting pressures, they had always been a team. She knew his flaws better than anyone, but she also knew his heart. He was a man who loved fiercely, who would do anything for his family, even when it cost him. Yet today, on the day that mattered most, they had stripped her of the one thing she could do, be there for him. As the minutes ticked by, each one seeming to stretch out like an eternity, Julie's mind raced. She could imagine Todd sitting in a sterile courtroom, his face a mask of calm, but with that familiar fire burning behind his eyes. He would face the judge with his trademark swagger, chin held high, defiant, but she knew, deep down, he would be looking for her, waiting for her nod, her smile, the reassurance that no matter what happened, they would get through it together. Except, this time he wouldn't find her. And she couldn't tell him that everything would be all right. Julie thought back to the moment they had shared just before everything unraveled. It was a quiet night after the kids had gone to bed. They sat on the porch, sipping tea and talking about everything but the trial. For a fleeting moment, it was just them. No cameras, no judgment, no fear. Just Todd and Julie the way it had always been. "I don't know what's going to happen," Todd had admitted, breaking the silence in a rare moment of vulnerability. Julie had reached over, squeezing his hand. "Whatever it is, we'll face it. Together." But now, as she stared down at the letter she would never send, she felt the weight of those words in a way she hadn't before. Together was a promise she couldn't keep today, and that realization was more painful than anything a judge could say. The house felt too big, too empty without him. Each creak of the floorboards, each flicker of light, reminded her of the life they built, a life now teetering on the edge of the unknown. She stood, walking over to the window, and gazed out at the sprawling lawn. Once perfectly manicured, it now looked overgrown, as if reflecting the chaos within. Julie took a deep breath, bracing herself for what was to come. She knew Todd would face it head-on, just as he always did. But the distance between them, emotional and physical, was more than she could bear. The clock on the wall ticked loudly, each second a reminder of how little time they had left, and still the silence remained. It was a silence full of words she wasn't allowed to say, of goodbyes she wasn't allowed to give. And as the day wore on, Julie realized something profound. No matter the outcome, no matter the verdict, there were some things that no courtroom, no ruling could ever take away. The love she felt for Todd, the bond they shared, those were hers. Untouchable. Indestructible. As she folded the letter one last time, tucking it into a drawer for another day, Julie made a silent vow. This wasn't the end. Todd would know she was with him, even if she couldn't be there in person, and no matter what happened, they would find a way through. Because in the end, some connections can never be severed. The sky outside the prison walls was an uncharacteristically bright shade of blue, a backdrop that seemed to mock Julie Chrisley's inner turmoil. It was Todd's big day, his birthday, and the weight of her absence felt heavier than any prison sentence she could serve. In a normal world, a call would have sufficed. A simple, happy birthday, sweetheart, over the phone. But this was not a normal world. This was prison, and Julie had been expressly forbidden from speaking to her husband on what was once a day they celebrated together with laughter, family, and lavish parties. It wasn't just the prison regulations keeping them apart, it was something deeper, something colder. Time had etched new rules into their lives, ones they had never imagined living by, but there were still things Julie hadn't yet accepted, and this was one of them.